Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Laura Rogers and this is Joelle Jobson on audio, and this is SharePoint Power Hour. This is a show that we do Wednesdays at 11 where we talk about just things in SharePoint, Office 365, Power Apps, and we just do live demos. Sometimes they're prepared and scripted and sometimes I just make it up as I go along. But because there's so many different topics, we're not developers, so we're not going to do anything too technical, but there's so many different topics and things are changing so fast in SharePoint that we always have plenty to talk about and plenty of fun solutions to show you in Power Apps and things like that. So as we go, the fun part about it being live is that we have iwmentor.slack.com, which is where we chat. During the show, and so you can ask questions. We have a discussion going. You can ask technical questions, just all these things, just while during the demo, and kind of give me your opinion and things like that. So let's go ahead and I'll talk about my solution, and then I'll flip over to my screen share. So this solution is something that people have been trying to do for years, something that people try to do with workflows and alerts and emails and things like that. It's basically, the idea is that when something changes in an item in SharePoint, like a status changes, then when the status changes, it triggers something. So that means it triggers like a certain email, or it triggers an item to get written to a change log, or just something with that particular field changing is what triggers it. Not just anything, not just the item being edited, but just one particular field. So that's the solution we're going to talk about. It's very specific. We'll see if it fills up a whole hour, but that's the solution that we're going to talk about today. And I'll go ahead and flip over to share my screen. All right, so this is a typical just project list, and we've got all our projects here, and we have a project status. Now, we did in a previous Power Hours where we did this conditional formatting on the list. I don't even remember what that one was called, but it was a couple of months ago. But this is a form that is customized in Power Apps. So we'll go ahead and go into Power Apps and click Customize Form. All right, so now here's our project. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And this is our project information form. Now, so the field that we're going to focus on, so I'll zoom in a little bit more, as I have to select this form, and I'm going to go ahead and add the status field. So I'm kind of doing, making sure to do all this from scratch so you don't miss anything. So I went ahead and added the status field. Now, status is a drop-down. It's a choice field over in SharePoint that's just got a couple of different statuses. Let me go ahead and open that up in another window so we can be able to flip back and forth to it. All right, so I've got projects right here. Okay, so here's the list, and then you can see in the list settings that the project status is just a choice field, and it's got active and complete and quote sent. So we want to do something in our app based on when that status changes. So here's the field right here. So here's kind of, there could be multiple ways to do this, but here's something that I came up with, is that first of all, this is a card. So when you have a form control, all these different little fields in here are called cards. So we have a card, and we go ahead and unlock the card because I'm going to tweak some things in there. So that's what we do when we want to be able to change stuff inside of this area. So inside of the card, I'll go and insert a label, and I'm just going to make it, we don't have to make it so that it shows. It doesn't have to be showing all the time. Like, we can change the visible property to false later, but just so we can kind of see what we're doing, we'll just go ahead and take a look at this, and I'm just going to drag it over a little bit like that. So this one is going to equal, I'm going to have a variable. So when I change what's in this drop down, I'm going to do an onChange. And so this onChange action is what I'm going to use to say, okay, as soon as somebody changes what's in here, then that's going to trigger basically a variable to be set. So when they change this drop down, I'm just going to do a local variable, which is update context, and then I'm going to say on change update context, and then I'm going to call it var project status. And what do I want this variable to equal whenever I change something? So then for that, I need to know what this dropdown is called. So this dropdown has got a pretty ugly name here. You can see it just says data card value 4. So I'm going to go ahead and rename that and call it DRP project status. And that way it's not such an ugly generic name. So this is the drop down that I want to look at to see, when it changes, I want to take the value that's in here and put it in that variable. So let's go back to on change. So in on change, I'm going to go variable project status to DRP project status dot, and then what? So I've got selected items. So selected is really for if you have one thing. Selected items is if you're allowing them to select multiple. I can double check in here. Let me go kind of close this. I can double check the properties for this. And select multiple is false. So I'm not going to have selected items. I'm going to have selected items. So it's going to be the thing that's selected. So when they change it, set this variable to whatever they change it to. So let's try that out. So I'm going to change this from active to complete, and that didn't work. So let me go. I did this the other day, and I was playing back and forth with the selected and selected items, and it kind of gave me some different results. So let me try that again. And worst case, I could just go open the customer one that I did this on yesterday and go make sure, see what I did. Okay, so on change, and this thing that we're doing with the drop-downs have actually changed. I think one of you mentioned this in the chat a few minutes ago. Drop-downs have actually changed in the past couple of weeks, the way they work. So you can see that we have, I'm not going to get too into the weeds with that, but on the drop-down itself, you may have noticed that kind of the way all the properties that exist for it a lot of them are new, and the way it works is new. So let's go look at, I'm going to do selected items instead of selected, like that. Just try that. It doesn't seem like it makes sense, but let me see. Dun, 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 dun. Nope. Oh, we do a dot after it. Let's see. Update context, dot selected, dot value. Sometimes it gives you a little squiggly at the end, letting you know that you need to do another dot, but sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, so that's exactly what, yep. Who's that in the chat? Christopher, yep, you're right. Let's try that again. That's the fun part about it being a live demo, is that, so let's try, so I did selected items, let's do selected item dot value. Okay. Hold on a second. Let me go open that up real quick. So do you guys, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two different demos. I'm going to do one of them that is going to send an email. Now, the question that you were asking, let me flip back over to here. The question that you were asking, Amanda, was, can you make it so that it does a workflow that actually sends an email to the project manager about the status changing? Well, in this case, we don't even need to do a workflow. We can just send the email directly from within the Power App. So when you send emails from directly within the Power App, you actually use the same sort of actions and the same sort of engine that Microsoft Flow uses, but it lets you just do it directly from within the Power App. So like when you do it in Microsoft Flow, then it actually counts all the flows that you have. So sometimes you could actually hit a limit to where you have a limit of how many flows you have per month or something like that. But when you do this with PowerApps and just trigger the action straight from within the Power App, then you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so I'm going to do, okay, so when I did this before, let's see, selected dot, that's what it was. Oh, okay. So I'm going to do this as a drop-down box. And share my screen again. All right, I got this. Now, the way this is going to work if you have a choice field versus a lookup field is going to be different. So I'm going to go ahead and go do this as a lookup field. So I'm going to use, since this is the one that I know that I got it working on, and I have customer lookup, it's a lookup field that I can make it change. I just want to demo the logic behind getting it to change, and I'm not going to get in the weeds with this whole fact that it's a choice field versus a lookup field. But if I have time, I might be able to go in and troubleshoot that. Okay, so this is a customer lookup, and I know that, and again, the way that these drop-down boxes work is a little bit different. And I know that I also, excuse me, my throat's a little dry. I created this one a while back, so I'm going to make sure I have the latest. And make sure I didn't already make changes to this. So I'm going to delete my customer lookup, and I'm going to add it back. So select the whole form and go to customer lookup. And then that's the one that I'm going to unlock. Okay, so this one's going to be on change, and this one, again, it's got an ugly name. So I'm going to say DRP, customer lookup. Customer lookup on change, update context, and then I'll call it where up to, and then DRP cust lookup. Why is that not? It's weird, it's not like populating with the thing that as I'm typing it. Oh well. Dot selected dot title. And I'm not sure why it's not pre-populating, like, oh, probably because I didn't do that. There we go. Selected dot, so I've got ID and value, so I'll just do value. And I want to go ahead and put my variable in that little box. That might be what I did. What I did wrong on the other one is yeah, see, I didn't put the variable in there. So it was working, it just didn't have the variable. Wow. Okay, variable project status, I'll put it on both of them. Insert a label. So I want this text box to show me the variable. So it could have very well have been setting the variable the whole time. Do the variable customer lookup. And so this box is just going to visually show me this variable. So I don't want it to equal the project status all the time. I just want to, on change, I want it to equal the project status. So let's go ahead and try that. So now, look, lightning tools. Hey, Sandy. So when I change that, it changes it to complete. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to go out of here. And I want to make sure that it's only going to set a value in the variable when I actually change that. So that's going to be sort of my test here, just to make sure, because I don't want that text box to always have a value. I want it to only have a value when I change something. So therefore, that's what I can, the fact that it has a value can be kind of, what I'm going to be triggering stuff off of. So let's go ahead and go back to SharePoint. And go ahead and edit this one. That thing is gigantic. And give it a second. Okay. So, not sure where my project status went. I might have to refresh that because it doesn't look like it has anything that I had in there that I just changed. Have you found that PowerApps does that, guys? If when you publish it, then you have to kind of go do another refresh of the browser because it could open another one? Let's see, Nicholas says, I'm having to start building the Power App and need to add additional columns to the SharePoint list. They're not showing up in the Power App. Well, yeah, they're not going to, oh, there we go. They're not going to show up live. They're just going to show up when, when you're editing, Nicholas, when you're editing the Power App, if you go ahead and refresh the data source, then they're going to show up in there. They're not going to automatically show up on the form, though. You have to go into the form and make it so that, open up the form properties and do those little check boxes to add more fields. Yeah. Oh yeah, you'd have to go refresh the data connect. I can't imagine why it wouldn't automatically show them coming up in the data connection. That would be weird. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go edit, customize the form. Okay, so project status. All right, so when I change it, I need it to trigger something. Now, I don't want that variable to automatically have that project status in it. And I'm wondering why I got this working in my other one and not. And it's like it automatically has a value when I open this thing up to edit it. Oh, that's so fun. Okay, let's go ahead and say OnVisible for this whole. So basically, it's giving me this value already. It's got a value in it, but I don't want it to automatically have a value. So basically what I want to do is compare this value that the project status already is, which is this big, long, complicated, field dot selected dot something, and then I want to compare it to when they actually do something and change it. So let's go ahead and I'll do another variable. So I'm going to do on select, and on select I'm going to say update context. I'm going to say here new status, and then let's say DRP project status dot selected dot value. And then what I want to do is I want to show this one just so I, while I'm testing, so I can see what's in there. I want to show that on the page. Okay, so I've got active is what it is right now, and then I'm going to do var new project status, and that doesn't have a value. So let's go try that. So the form opens up, it's got active. I'll change it to complete. They both change to complete, but that's okay. So what I want to do is I want to be able to compare it to something. I want this to stay active. So, and again, this is only going to be happening on forms that I'm editing. So since when I'm editing something, this is already going to have a value in it. So when I arrive on this page, I want it to go ahead and grab whatever the project status is and put it in this first variable, because on change is just going to already have a value in it. So now the OnVisible property is really interesting. Excuse me, didn't drink enough water. The OnVisible property is really interesting because it acts a little weird when we're doing the customized forms, as opposed to a full-blown Power App. This is a customized SharePoint list form. So the OnVisible property works a little differently depending on which one you're on. So what I want to do is, as soon as you hit this screen, I want to say, grab the value of whatever's in this project status box. So DRP project status. And I want to put it in this variable project status. So I'm going to go to my little edit form, on edits. So I'll go to my on edit property, and I'll say set or update context. No, I can't do update context because I can only do that on that one screen. So in this case, I'll actually have to use the set command on all these, because I need to be able to go from across screens and across the whole app. Does that make sense? So set is a global variable, and update context is just for that one screen. So I'm going to say set var project status to, and then what value do I want it to be? DRP project status dot selected dot value. Okay. All right, so now, since I decided that this needed to be a global variable and not a context variable, I need to go just change those to use the set command on the other one. All right, so on select, set that to, it's a little weird because the syntax is different depending on if it's update context or a global variable. Okay, when they change it, set that. All right, now let's see. I'll go ahead and do that on this. I'm just doing the project status right now. Let me make sure. Yeah, project status. So I'm going to ignore this other one. Just get rid of that for now. And I'm going to get rid of this real quick. I don't want it to give me any errors. There. And this one's going to give me an error because, see, it's still putting an update context there. Okay. Save. Now, since this is something that has to trigger when I edit an item in SharePoint, I actually have to go publish it and go completely out of here, go back to SharePoint to be able to make sure that it works, right? So when you're doing a Power App, when you're editing it, you can hit the preview button a lot of times, but there are a couple of things that you can't really test well with the preview button. So if you have like on start, or if you have like these SharePoint integration commands, those are really only going to happen from within SharePoint. So you can't necessarily just hit the preview button and try those out. All right, I think, let's see. I don't think this got that update. See, this I can still see the old fields that were in here. I go ahead and do a hard refresh. It did not get that last change that I made yet. I think it's thinking about it. There we go. All right, let's go change this to complete. Okay. All right, so that changed that second one. Let's go make sure I've got the first one working. I think that some of the updates, Joelle, that they made to PowerApps made it so like this other form that I did for the customer is completely brand new and was created after these updates happened. So I'm wondering if that might be causing some of, whatever this issue is, where the exact thing that I did in the customer project just yesterday is not, like, things are working differently in this older app that I have that I'm doing this demo on. So that could potentially be.
Could be.
Yeah, that's weird. Variable, new project status, variable, project status. want to display what's in the variable project status. Oh, okay. One second. Edit form. On edit. Item. Good Lord. Selected item. Selected value. Okay, selected dot value, and then okay. So now I took the error away. So the thing that I was trying to write into this this stuff's tricky. The thing that I was trying to write into this variable was trying to look for more than one item, and so this variable is only looking for one piece of text. So then it got sort of out of whack. So yeah. So once I get this, all smooth and make sure that it's all, working in all different scenarios, I'll go ahead and write this up in a blog post. But we got to save this and go try it again, publish it. And then I have to do like a hard refresh in the browser to make sure that those changes took effect. Got to go back to SharePoint. Okay, and hard refresh. I think that one worked. No, it did. See, it's not on here. So let me go refresh again. It's always, I guess every time you do these, you have to like make some sort of change that's going to be very obvious, so you'll know if your change is like in effect in that version of the form you're trying out. Good Lord. That's frustrating. Let's see, anybody? Yeah. Good call, Fernando. I'll go ahead and check that out. I'll go double check that. Oh yeah, so you guys noticed that like little glitches and stuff like that? Yeah. Yeah. So funny. Okay, let me zoom in again. Yeah, so they try to keep it so that when, things that you've done in apps already aren't necessarily going to just randomly break. So the version of that PowerApps was on, when you publish it, it stays that way until you go edit the PowerApp again. But yeah, this is... let's see, Brad says, I don't know if this matters, but I found I needed to refresh when using Chrome, but I don't think I need to when using Edge or IE. Yeah, but PowerApps are so much easier in Chrome. I found a lot less issues in it. Okay, text is variable project status, is variable new project status. So when the form, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to take this thing that I did in here and take this set variable, and I'm going to put it in the OnVisible just to make sure. I had that. Oh man, I was playing with some of that animation stuff in here, Joelle. I still had that in here. Cracks me up. Okay, so now how many screens do I have in here? Now for OnVisible, you don't necessarily have to trigger it by starting all over from scratch. You could just like go to another screen and go back. So I'm going to do that for testing purposes. So I'm going to say I just set this as an OnVisible property for it to set this variable. So I want to be able to be on this other screen and go navigate to screen 1. So I'm going to go to, do a little test button, navigate to form screen 1. No transition. And then that should trigger what I did. Good Lord, finally. Okay, so when we arrive on this form, it says the status, And then when we change it, it says, okay, so now we just have to compare these two. Sorry that took so long. You know, and I was wondering if it was going to take a whole hour to demo this, Joelle. Now I got that finally working. Even though it worked fine again in the other tenant. Okay, so now I need to compare these two. So now when they submit this form, I want it to compare the variable project status to the variable new project status. And if they're different, then do something. So that's the trigger. And then if they're different, the first thing that I'm going to do is just go right to a changelog. And basically this changelog is just I just literally created a SharePoint list that's just a blank custom list with just a title field. So it's pretty simple. Of course, for your changelog, whatever values you want to capture when people change something, that's, you know, you could create multiple fields for that. So in this case, it's just going to be super simple. And now I'm not going to put this on the submit button. Now this is why. So if you submit something and you have some sort of validation error and the form doesn't actually get submitted to SharePoint, then you don't want your action to happen anyway. So that's the case where you'd want to use a, let's see, it is called OnSuccess. So OnSuccess, once they actually do successfully submit the form, that's when we want to go ahead and do whatever we're triggering. Okay, so we have a project manager here, and we have these two fields that we're going to be comparing. So I'm going to say, so the first thing I'm going to do is write to the changelog, and the second thing that I'm going to do is write to that, patch it to that, send an email. Okay, so for the writing to the changelog, I'm going to do a patch. So patches, we did a couple of other power hours just in the past month or so about patching and ways to patch and why you'd want to patch and things like that. So I'm not going to go too much into patching, but I'm going to patch. Now I have to have changelog in here, so I'll go ahead and add that as a data source real quick. Go find SharePoint. And make sure I've got my URL to this site and my changelog. This is like this Franken site from with all these different test lists and things like that in it. Okay, so on success, patch, changelog, and then I'm going to do defaults, changelog. And then this is where, what update do I want to make? So I'm going to change the title field to, and I'm going to put, like status was changed. Was changed for, and so here's where I can do, I can combine text and fields in here. So I can, now I could have a bunch of separate fields in my changelog if I wanted to, but I could say like the project name, and I can include the project status, but I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to put one, and I'm just going to put the project status in here, and the new status is going to be this variable over here. Okay, so expand that a little bit. Let me do my little shift enter to kind of separate these out. Status was changed to, and then put a variable new status. Okay. All right, status was changed to blah, blah, blah. Close that. Close that. All right, and then it's automatically going to capture the created and created by, right? So this changelog, I don't need to add a date or anything because it's going to know automatically who I am when I run this patch command. So let's go ahead and we'll do that. So, oh, and I got to do the if. I need to make sure the patch works before I start throwing in the condition there. Okay, so that should have just created an item in here, but I got to do the condition to compare the two variables, right? So there's my item that I just created. And now I want to say only if those two variables are different. If var, if, let's see, status. So I'm not going to do not equal. I'm going to do if not equals new status. If not that, then do this. All right. So that logic makes sense, right? Oh, thanks, Jonathan. You don't have to save and then publish. You can just do save and publish. Cool. All right. Now I'm comparing these two. And then, let's see. Now it's going to do the exact same thing it just did. So now as a test, we need to make sure that these two values are the same. So I'm going to go back to that other screen and navigate back so I can trigger my OnVisible, right? Okay. Now these are equal. So now I'll try and submit it. And it is not going to write to this. And now they, go ahead and change it to active. Now they are different, and I'll submit it. And, change to active. Yay! What do y'all think? Is that cool? Okay, so that got changed to active. Now, the next thing to do is to make it send an email as well. Got to give me a golf clap or something in there. Okay, so
Woohoo!
Yeah, yay! I actually figured it out live. Now to do the email action, we have to go make sure we add the email data source. So that's going to be, and the icon is actually different. I added Outlook. I was thinking about it, and when you add it, and then it. Oh, see, it says Outlook in there, but it's really called Office 365, so that it changes after you add it. So anyway, it's already had it in there. All right, so now I want to send an email on success also. So after that, I'll put a semicolon, send email, office365.send email. And you can see my little syntax up here. Who do I want it to go to? What's the subject? What's the body? So now, when you're doing the on success, something to remember is that you're not going to be able to reference those fields, your card fields. So I'm not going to be able to go say whatever value is in this project manager field, send the email to that person. Because on success, after the form's already been submitted, the form is not there anymore. So those variables that I have that I'm comparing on success, they actually still have a value in them. Those aren't inside of the card, like the actual fields in the cards. But for this one, it's project manager, and it's basically this field. So I want to show you how we can look at the value that was in this project manager field after the form has been submitted. So that's going to be that's who I want to send it to. So I type the SharePoint form 1, the name of the form, dot last submit. So then once I do last submit, it's going to give me all these values of all these fields. So project manager, and then since it's a complex field, it's a people field, I have to go project manager dot email. So that's who I'm going to send it to. And then what do I want to have for the subject? Same thing for the project name. I want to have that get the little last submit thing. Now I think the project name is the title field. So let's go double check that. So I think that when I created this list, I made that be the title field. I just renamed it to project. Yep. So I hover over that and I see in the bottom of the status that's title. So that system field in SharePoint is what I have to use when I'm doing these commands in here. So the subject is going to be, then I'll do the name of the project. So SharePoint form 1. That's the name of my form, control. You see on the left side of the screen, that's the name, what the form is named. Dot last submit. dot, that's the title. And then I want to combine that with some text. I can do ampersand status was changed. Right? And then it's asking me, it's going to ask me for the body next. So go look at your project. And we could put a link in there. I'm not going to do that right now. But all right, you can also do some extra stuff in here from CC, BCC, attachments, importance, stuff like that. I'll just do like importance. And it even gives you some choices in there. Okay. Now let's try that out. Oh, and that if statement, I need to make sure that I put that inside of the if statement, right? So let's see, if not, and then patch. Let's see. Oh, so here's the end of my if statement. I actually need to move the end of my if statement to be after this whole thing, because I want it to patch and send the email only if that status was changed. Fun stuff. Okay, so let me just navigate to this other, I want to trigger that OnVisible real quick. So I'm just navigated back, and I'm navigating here. Now I didn't clear out my variable though. See, the variable still, that new project status still has a value in it. So I'm changing this, so now this is different than this. And then let's hit submit. And then Joelle's going to get an email. I guess I could put the project manager as myself so that I get the email. So I can demo that. There we go. So then I'll change it again. Well, it's already different. Go ahead and hit submit. And then give it a minute, I guess. So that I think that's going to be in your Wonderlaw tenant.
Oh, okay.
If that arrives, but they're usually pretty fast though. I'm not sure. So how do I know if something went wrong or if it didn't work? Now sometimes, so you'll see like a little yellow exclamation mark if something didn't work. Let's go see with that one if the change log got, so status was changed to quote sent. That did happen. So did the mail get sent? Did it go to my focused or my other inbox or something like that? No? Clutter? No? This is just like my demo, just like testing stuff, mailbox. It's not real.
Yeah, I'm not.
What?
So yeah, I'm not seeing it. I don't know if you sent it to me.
Okay, so sometimes, let's go flip it over to this. Oh, look, see? When we flip over to thumbnail view, sometimes we'll actually see it's got an error, sometimes that we don't see otherwise. So that's really odd. So what is my error on? So click on, and when I double click on the little error thing, that's when it tells me send email has an invalid value for parameter 2. Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to type one in here. I want to demo. I'm going to demo, like, make sure that works, and then we can troubleshoot that in a minute. Because this demo was really just to show you the on change and, like, the changing a specific value. Okay. So those are still different. So it's doing something. All right, status was changed. So it didn't put the project name in there, but it did say status was changed. Please go look at your project. So the email did get sent. So that whole last submit thing, again, that might be one of those things that it works in all the other projects that I do. It's not working in this one. Another thing that I've done to get around the whole fact that after you've submitted the form that those values aren't in there anymore, last submit is usually something that works. Let me show you another thing that you can do. So I can take the, I can just stick an extra text box in here. Because again, remember I have these labels sitting here that just are showing me a value, a variable, whatever they're showing me, and those work. Those actually will do something on success, even though the form's not there anymore, the form's gone. So what I can do is I can insert just an extra, and I can hide all these again. I can hide these later. I can insert a label that is going to equal just whatever is in the project name box. Is anybody? That's true, Sandy. Yeah, you do get more. That's a good point. You do get more insight and flow when you have an issue with your workflow. It gives you like all kinds of logging information. So data card value 1, those names, project name. Okay, project name equals txt project name dot text. Okay, so then txt project name dot text is what I'm going to use in my email. What did I call that label? So let me go see what I called it. Gotta use that. So I'll call it LBL project name. A lot of little workarounds today, huh? Good times. So let me split this out a little bit more too. That's the 2. That's the subject. And, no, wait, this is the 2. This is the subject. That's the body. Okay. So this is the subject. So I'm going to do LBL project name. Status was changed, dot text. All right, let's go try that again. All right, so let's go change the status. I gotta go navigate away and navigate back so it sets that first project status. So, because I put it on my OnVisible, and I really am gonna try to write this in a blog post because I know it's a lot of moving pieces. Okay, so now it's active. I'll change it to complete, hit submit, and I can see that this is the little text box that my email is gonna look at when I submit it. And then, yay, Contoso prepaid support status was changed. So then I've got like 10 minutes left. So now I need to do the same thing with the project manager field, have that extra little label in it so that I can use that in the email after the form has been submitted. So again, we're doing it on success of this form instead of in the save button, just in case the form doesn't successfully submit. You don't want these things to happen. So I'll go ahead and unlock that and insert a label. Okay. So there's my label, and then I'm going to call it LBL Project Manager. Sure. And then that is going to equal whatever's in here. And that's got an ugly name too. DRP Project Manager. Project Manager dot selected dot email. Okay. So there's my email address, and then this is going to be called Label Project Manager. So then for the 2 in my email, I need to change that to LBL Project Manager dot text. Okay. That's a good idea, Larry. You could totally do that. So instead of, you could just completely hide the submit button until they've done whatever validation. That might be more work though, to do that, to say like, if this is blank, if this is blank, if this is blank, or if this is blah, 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 and then hide it. So that might be too much. Yeah. But that's definitely an option. I mean, just like in a lot of things in SharePoint, there are a lot of different ways to kind of do the same thing. So we'll go test that one more time. I gotta get a value in that little first text box. Let me navigate away and navigate back to use the OnVisible. Okay, and change it to quote sent, submit, and so it's looking at this label, and sends me an email. Yep, so it sent it to me. It's correct, and then the next thing that I would want to do is just hide these. So like this is just, I can select those. It doesn't let me select multiple select. It's hard to multiple select things like across cards, some from within cards like that. It's not really, doesn't really let you do that. Visible false. And same thing here, visible false. So is there anything else that you guys like to make it, trigger, do something when a certain field is changed? Y'all want to like brainstorm like different kind of solutions that you're going to be able to do now that you know how to do this? Okay. Dana says, can the email have a link back to the project? Probably. Let me go ahead and try that. I would say probably because, I know that it can, but you never know what's going to happen when I demo these things. Okay, so please go look at your project. And then now you can put, so I'll just put a hyperlink in there, but then you can also put HTML. You can do HTML emails, but that's a whole other power hour. So yeah. So Larry, you could change the display mode to disabled based on certain conditions, back to what you're saying about the button. Yeah. Now the thing about the link to the project though is that's going to be the same thing that we came across with these fields and the value not being there anymore after the form is submitted. So let's see, let's go add, and this is just like a little bonus thing we're throwing in here. Okay, I've got link to item. Now again, I can hide this whole card, but I want you to be able to see it. And just like with the other things, I need to have a label that holds that value. So I've got to insert a label and put that is going to equal that data card value 1. Okay, I didn't feel like renaming it. 1.text. So this label is going to be called LBL link to item. And we'll put that in the submit. Okay, right here. It's not going to be a clickable hyperlink though. It's just going to be a big, long, ugly. Now again, we could do HTML styling in here and make it nice, pretty, have it, say the name of the project or something. We just don't have time right now to do that. So, and that's all ugly. We could just hide that whole card. So let's make these two values different again. Go back, navigate away, navigate back. So now we don't have our, oh, because I hit them. And so the project status, I just changed it to active. I think that's what it already, I don't know if that's what it already was. Okay, yeah. Okay, see, yeah, it's just, I didn't put a space after project. So yeah, that needs a little bit more work, but yes, Nicholas. So basically you have to create that little label variable thing to be able to still have the value of any of your fields, to be able to pass it to, in the email or whatever you're doing on successful submission of the form. What do y'all think about that? So let's see, anybody else have any questions? All right, cool. Well, not sure what we're doing on Power Hour next week. I might do a little thing that, where you can have drop downs at the top of a list of stuff and change the drop downs to filter the things in the list. So I think I might do that. But I kind of wanted to demo like some of this new stuff that's been coming out, like the new stuff Microsoft has done around news, and the new stuff around just like some of the updates to the mobile app, and the updates in Teams. So I'm kind of waiting to see what hits my tenant, and when it hits my tenant, to be able to know what I'll be able to demo at Power Hour. And we have a little ideas channel in here that you can submit ideas. This idea from this Power was Amanda Richards. Thank you, Amanda. So ideas is where you can go. And yeah, awesome. Let me know if you have any last questions. I know I am on sort of a delay, but yeah. Oh, and in the ideas channel, you can go in there and find other people's ideas, and you can give like little thumbs up and stuff like that to say that you also kind of vote on it. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast, and I will just keep an eye on my blog, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks. Oh, Jonathan, yeah, you could just put that in the form as a gallery and just show the list that way.